Hello everyone, I am Professor Nilesh Lembore. In the previous session, we learned the role of information in marketing research and its limitations of marketing research. Today, we learn the whole process of the market research. And generally, the research process before embarking on the details of research methodology and the techniques, it seems appropriate to present a brief overview of the research process. The research process consists of series of actions or steps necessary to effectively carry out research and the desired sequencing of these steps. The chart shown in the figure will illustrate a research process. So in this chart, we see what is the research process. The chart indicates that the research process consists of a number of closely related activities as shown through to first to seventh. But such activities overlap continuously rather than following a strictly prescribed sequence. So steps in this research process are at the time of the first step determine the nature of the last step to be undertaken. If subsequent procedures have not been taken into account in the early stages, serious difficulties may arise which may even prevent the completion of the study. One should remember that the various steps involved in a research process are not mutually exclusive, nor they separate and distinct. They do not necessarily follow each other in any specific order, and the researcher has to be constantly anticipating at each step in the research process. The requirement of the subsequent steps, however, the following order concerning various steps provide a useful procedural guideline regarding the research process. There is the formulating the research problem, extensive literature review, developing the hypothesis, preparing the research design, determine the sampling design, collecting the data, execution of the project, that is analysis of the data, then hypothesis testing, and generalization and interpretation of the result report, and preparation of the report or presentation of the result, that is the formal write-up of the conclusion reached. So here we brief describe the above stated step will be helpful. So we will describe one by one step in detail. So first stage is the formulating the research problem. So how when we formulate it, or how we can formulate the research problem? There are two types of research problem. And that is those which relate to the states of the nature and those which relate to the relationship between the variable. Uh, at the very outset, the researcher must single out the problem he want to study. That is, he must decide the general area of the interest or aspect of the subject matter that he would like to inquire into. Initial, the problem may be stated in a broad general way, and then the ambiguities, if any, relating to the problem to be solved. Then the feasibility of a particular solution has to be considered before a working formulation of the problem can be set up. The formulation of a general topic into a specific research problem thus constitutes the first step in the scientific inquiry. Essentially, two steps are involved in the formulating the research problem. That is, understanding the problem thoroughly and rephrasing the same into meaningful terms from an analytical point of view. The best way of understanding the problem is to discuss it with one's own colleagues or with those having some expertise in the matter. In an academic institution, the researcher can seek the help from a guide who is usually an experienced man and has several research problems in mind often. The guide puts forth the problem in general terms, and it is up to the researcher to narrow it down and phrase the problem in operational terms. In private business unit or in governmental, the problem is usually embarked by the administrative agencies with which the researcher can discuss as a how the problem originally come out, and what consideration are involved in its possible solution. The researcher must at the same time examine all available literature to get himself according with the selected problem. He may review two types of literature: the conceptual literature, overcoming the concept and the theories, and the empirical literature. So, can find out the problem through the relevant literature review. So, this task of formulating, of defining a research problem is step of greatest importance in the entire research process. The problem to be investigated must be defined ambiguously. For that will help discriminating relevant data from the irrelevant ones. Care must, however, to be taken to verify the objectivity and validity of the background facts concerning the problem. Professor W.A. Mismanaged correctly state that statement of the objective is the basic importance because it determines the data which are to be collected, the characteristic of the data which are relevant relations which to be explored, the choice of techniques to be used in this exploration, and the form of the final report. If there are certain patient terms, the same should be clearly defined along with the task of formulating the problem. In fact, formulation of the problem often follow a sequential pattern where a number of formulations are set up, each formulation more specific than the preceding one. Each one phrase is more analytical terms and each more realistic in terms of the available data and resources. Then second stage is the extensive literature review. In extensive literature review, once the problem is formulated, a brief summary of it should be written down. It is compulsory to for a research worker writing a thesis for a PhD degree to write synopsis of the topic and submit it to the necessary committee or the research board or RRC board for the approval. At this juncture, the researcher should undertake extensive literature survey connected with the problem. For this purpose, the abstracting and indexing journals and published or unpublished biographies are the first place to go to. Academic journals, conference proceeding, government reports, books, etc., must be tapped depending on the nature of the problem. In this process, it should be remember that one source lead to another. The earlier studies, if any, which are similar to the study and should be carefully studied. A good library will be a great help to the researcher at this stage. Then next stage we are developing our working hypothesis. So hypothesis simply as an assumption, and after extensive literature review, researchers should state their clear terms the working hypothesis or hypothesis. Working hypothesis is a tentative assumption made in order to draw out the test is logical or empirical consequences. Assess the manner in which research hypotheses are developed in particularly important since they provide the focal point for the research. They also affect the manner in which tests must be conducted in the analysis of the data and indirectly the quality of the data which is required for the analysis. In most type of research, the development of working hypothesis plays an important role. Hypothesis should be very specific and limited to the piece of the research in hand because it has to be tested. The role of hypothesis is to guide the researcher by delimiting the area of research and to keep him on the right track. It sharpens his thinking and focus attention on the more important facet of the problems. It also indicates the type of data required and the type of methods of the data analysis to be used. So how does one go about the developing working hypothesis? The answer is using the following approach. First approach is the discussion with the colleague and experts about the problem, its origin and the objective in seeking a solution. Second approach is the examination of the data and records, if available, concerning the problem for possible trends, peculiarities and other clues. So next approach is the review of similar studies in the area or of the studies on the similar problems. And last approach is the exploratory personal investigation, which involves original field interviews on limited scale with interested parties and individuals with a view to secure a greater insight into a practical aspect of the problem. Thus, working hypothesis arises the results of prior thinking about the subject, examination of the available data and material, including related studies, and the counsel of the experts and interested parties. Working hypotheses are more useful when stated in precise and clearly defined the terms. It may as well be remembered that occasionally we may encounter a problem where we do not need working hypothesis, especially in the case of exploratory or formularies the researcher uh, which do not aim at testing the hypothesis. But in general rule, specification of working hypothesis is another basic step of the research process in most research problems. So next stage we prepare how we can prepare the research design. So preparation of the research design, there are different type of research designs are available. The research problems having been formulated in the clear-cut terms in the researcher will be required to prepare a research design. That is, he will have to set the conceptual structure within which research would be conducted. The research design is the blueprint of any research. It is the master plan of the research. The preparation of such a research design facilitates the research to be efficient as a possible, yielding maximal information. In other words, the function of research design is to provide for the collection of relevant evidences with minimal expenditure of efforts, timely and money. But how all this can be achieved depend mainly on the research purpose. Research purpose may be grouped into four categories, that is the exploration, description, diagnosis and the experimentation. A flexible research design and which provides opportunity for considering many different aspects of the problems is considered appropriate if the purpose of the research study is that exploration, but when the purpose happens to be accurate description, super situation or of an association between the variables. The suitable design will be one that minimizes the bias and maximizes the reliability of the data collected and the analysis. There are several research designs such as experimental and non-experimental hypothesis testing. Experimental design can be either informal design such as the before and after without control, after only with control, before and after with control, or formal design such as the completely randomized design, randomized block design, lattice skew design, simple and complex factorial design, out of which the researcher must select one of his own project. The preparation of the research design appropriate of particular research problem involve using usually the consideration of the following: the means of obtaining the information, the ability and skills of the researcher and his staff, if any, explanation of the way in which selected means of obtaining the information will be organized and reasoning leading to the selection, the time available for the research and the cost factor relating to the research, that is the finance available for the purpose. So next stage we determine how we can determine the sampling techniques or sample design. Here we see the diagram of the sampling technique, that is there are major two parts, that is the priority sampling techniques and non-priority sampling techniques. Under non-priority sampling technique there is a convenience sampling, judgment sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling, and under priority sampling techniques there is the simple random sampling, simple random sampling with replacement, without replacement, that is the systematic sampling, also stratified random sampling, cluster sampling and other sampling. So here we learn how we can what is the convenience and what is the meaning of all these sampling techniques. All the items under the consideration in any field of inquiry constitute inverse of the population. A complete enumeration of all the items in the population is known as a census inquiry. It can be presumed that in such an inquiry, when all the items are covered, no element of chance is left and highest accuracy is obtained. But in practice, this may not be true. Even the slightest elements of the bias in such an inquiry will get larger and larger as the number of observation increases. Moreover, there is no way of checking the element of bias or their extent except through our surveys or use of the simple sample checks. Besides, this type of inquiry involves the great deal of time, money and energy. Not only this, census inquiry is not possible in practice under many circumstances. For such instances, blood testing is done only on sample basis. Hence, quite often we select only a few items from the universe for our study purpose, and the items selected constitute what is the technically called it is the sample. It is the small portion of the population, and some population is the totality or aggregate of the sample. The researcher must decide the way of selecting a sample, what is the popularly known as the sample design. In other words, a sample design is defined plan determined before any data are actually collected for obtaining a sample for a given population. Thus, the plan of select the 12 of a city, 200 drugstores in a certain way constitute a sample design. Sample can be either priority sample or non-priority sample. With priority samples, each element has known as the priority of being included in the sample, but the non-priority samples do not allow the researcher to determine the probability. Priority samples are those based on the simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, whereas the non-priority sampling are based on the convenience sampling, judgment sampling, quota sampling techniques. A brief mention in the important sample are as follows. That is the convenience sampling. Researchers are take the sample as per their convenience. A simple sample, a simple random sampling. It is the each and every item has an equal chance for being selection. For example, lottery methods. It is the one of the good example of the simple random sampling. Or we are cooking the rice. That is the simple random sampling with replacement and without replacement. That is one of the real life example of the random sampling also. So systematic and stratified cluster sampling, quota, that is all are other sampling techniques, so that we can select the appropriate sampling technique to select the sample design for given data. So next one is the collecting the data. So how we can collect the data? So in dealing with the real life problems, is it often found that data at hand are inadequate, and hence it becomes the necessary to collect that are appropriate. There are several ways of collecting the appropriate data which differ considerably in context of many cost time and other resources at the disposal of the researcher. Primary data can be collected either through experiment or through survey. If the researcher conduct the experiment, he observes some quantitative measurement of the data with the help of which he examines the truth contained by the hypothesis. But in the case of the survey, data can be collected by any one or more of the following ways. That is for observation, interview, questionnaire, and database. So in observation, this method implies the collection of the information by way of the investigator's own observation. Without interviewing the respondent, the information obtained related to what is the currently happening and is not complicated by either of the past behavior or the future intentions or attitude of respondents. This method is no doubt an expensive method, and the information provided by this method is also very limited, as this method is not suitable in the inquiries where large samples are concerned. The interview method, through the person in the interview method, where we can collect the data by through personal interview or some telephonic interview. In personal interview method, the investigator follows a rigid procedure and seeks the answers to a set of preconceived questions through personal interview. This method of collecting data is usually carried out in a structured way, where output depends upon the ability of the interviewer to a large extent. Through telephone interview, this method of collecting the information involves contacting the respondents on telephone itself. This is not a very widely used method, but it plays an important role in industrial survey in developed region, particularly when the survey has to be accomplished in a very limited time. This is very fastest method of the data collection, that is the telephonic interview method. This means that by mailing of the questionnaire, the researcher and the respondents to come to contact with each other if this method of survey is adopted. That is a questionnaire or email through to the respondents with the request to return after completing the same. It is the most extensively used method in various economic and business survey. Before applying this method, usually pilot study for testing the questionnaire is conducted, which reveals the weaknesses, if any, of the questionnaire. Questionnaire to be used must be prepared very carefully so that it may provide to be effective in collecting the relevant information. Also, you can collect the data through schedules. Under this method, the researcher are appointed and given training. They are provided with the schedules containing relevant questions. These enumerators go to the responders with these schedules. Data are collected by filling up the schedules by narrator on the basis of replies given by the responders, which depends upon the capability of enumerator so far as this method is concerned. Some occasional field check on the work of the enumerators may ensure sincere work. The researcher should select one of these methods of the collecting the data, taking into the consideration the nature of the investigation, objective, scope of the inquiry, financial resources available time, and the desired degree of accuracy through the uh, through those he should pay attention to all these factors, but much depends upon the ability and experience of the researcher. So next one is the after collecting the data, we need to analyze the data. So after the data we have been collected, the researchers turns to task of the analyzing them. The analysis of the data required to the number of closely related operations such as the establishment of categories, the application of these categories to raw data through coding, tabulation, and then drawing the statistical inference. The unwieldy data should necessarily be condensed into a few manageable groups and tables for further analysis. Thus, researchers should classify the data or raw data into the some purposeful and usable categories. Coding operation is usually done at this stage, through which the categories of the data are transformed into the symbols that may be tabulated and conducted. Generally, this coding is we are making in the spaces data sheets. You can create the spaces and data sheet for the analysis purpose. Editing the procedure that improves the quality of the data for coding, which coding the stages is ready for the tabulation. Tabulation is the part of the technical procedure wherein the classified data are put in the form of tables. The mechanical device can be made use of this juncture. A great deal of the data, especially in large inquiries, is tabulated by computer. Computers not only save time but also make it possible to study the large number of variables affecting a problem simultaneously. Analysis work after tabulation is generally based on the computation of various percentage, coefficient, etc. By applying the various well-defined statistical formula in the process of analysis, relationship or differences supporting or conflicting with original or new hypothesis should be subjected to the test of significance to determine with what validity data can be said to indicate any conclusion. For instance, if there are two samples of weekly wages, each sample being drawn from the factories in different parts of the same city, giving two different mean values, then our problem may be whether the two mean values are significantly different or the difference is just a matter of the chance, that is the H0 and H1. Through the use of statistical tests, we can establish whether such a difference is a real one or is the result of random fluctuation. If the difference happens to be real, the inference will be that the two samples research comes for the different universe, and if the difference is due to chance, the conclusion would be that the two samples belongs to the same universe. Similarly, the techniques of the analysis of variance can help in the analyzing whether there are more varieties of the seeds grown in the certain fields yield significantly different result or not. In brief, the researcher can analyze the collected data with the help of the various statistical tools and techniques. Then next stage is the hypothesis testing. So we can define null hypothesis, that is the H1, and alternative hypothesis H0. Here is the funny example of what is the meaning of the hypothesis or concept of the hypothesis. That is, after analyzing the data of the stated above, the researcher is in a position to test the hypothesis. If any, he had formulated earlier, do the facts support the hypothesis or they happen to the country? This is the usual question which should be answered while testing the hypothesis. Various tests such as the chi-square test, t-test, F test have been developed by statisticians for the purpose. The hypothesis may be tested through the use of one or more such tests depending upon the nature and object of the research inquiry. Hypothesis testing will be result in either accepting the hypothesis or in rejecting it. If the researcher had no hypothesis to start with, generalization established on the basis of the data may be stated as a hypothesis to be tested by the subsequent researchers in time to time in the come. Then what is the generalization and interpretation? If the hypothesis is tested and upheld the several times, it may be possible for the researcher to arrive at the generalization, that is to build a theory. As a matter of fact, a real value of research lies in the ability to arrive at the certain generalization. If the researcher had no hypothesis to start with, it might be seek explain his finding on the basis of some theory. It is known as an interpretation. The process of interpretation may be quite often trigger of new questions, which in the turn may lead to the further researches. So, how we can next is the how we can prepare the report. So finally, the researcher has to prepare the report of what has been done by him. Writing of the report must be done with a great care, keeping in the view the following. The layout of the report should be as follows: the preliminary pages, the main text, and the end matter. In the preliminary pages, the report should carry title and date followed by the acknowledgement and forward. Then there should be table of content followed by a list of tables and list of graphs and charts, if any, given in the report. The main text of the report should be have the following parts. That is the introduction. First part is the introduction. It should be contain a clear statement of the objective of the research and explanation of the methodology adopted in the accomplishing in the research. The scope of the study along with the various limitations should as well be stated in this part. Then summary of findings. After introducing their would appear a statement of finding and recommendations in a non-technical language. If the findings are extensive, and they should be summarized. Then main report. The main body of the report should be present in the logical sequence and broken down into the readily identifiable sections. And last one is the conclusion. So towards the end of the main text, researcher should again put down the results of his research clearly and precisely in the fact. It is the final summing up. At the end of the report, appendix should be enlisted in respect of all technical data, bibliography, that is the list of books, journals, report, etc. Consulted should be given in the end. Index should be also given, especially in the published research report. Then report should be written in a concise and objective style in simple language, avoiding the vague expression, vague expression as such as the it seems, there may be, and the like. Charts and illustrations in the main report should be used only if they present the information more clearly and perceptibly. Then calculated confidence limit must be mentioned and the various constraint experience in conducting the research operation may be well stated. So this is the general research process which is followed in every research. So thank you for your patience listening. We'll see in the our next lesson or next session. Thank you very much.